In this video, we're going to show you how to migrate from Terraform Cloud to Scalr. Before doing so, we recommend looking at our migration guide in docs.scalr.io, which will show you a full comparison between the two products. Once you've decided that you do want to perform the migration, you go to our GitHub repository, which contains the migration script. The script will migrate Terraform Cloud organizations and projects, workspaces, workspace settings, variables, state files, and much more. After the objects have migrated, the script will also generate Scalr provider code to allow you to manage your Scalr objects through the Scalr provider, making it easier to scale longer term. So let's start walking through the repo here. First off, there are a couple prerequisites. So of course, you do need an account with Terraform Cloud as well as Scalr. And what we also suggest doing is adding VCS provider to Scalr as well as the provider configuration, because what the script will actually do is that when it ports these workspaces over, it will automatically link to your VCS provider as well as the repo that is defined, and link to the provider configuration, which would be needed to authenticate to any of your Terraform providers. Next up is the authentication. You have a couple different options. You can pass the arguments directly in the command that you're going to execute. You can also store them as environment variables, which I will do because I don't want to expose them in the command line. And then lastly, the script will also read your credentials file. So if you do Terraform login to Terraform Cloud, as well as Scalr, we'll actually store those credentials in your credentials file, and you can use that as part of the way to authenticate with the script. You do have a lot of options in terms of the arguments that you'll pass through, so we won't go through all of these today. But for example, if you did want to do a filter based on Terraform Cloud projects and equate those to Scalr environments, you can. If you wanted to do a one-to-one mapping from a Terraform Cloud organization to a Scalr environment, you can do that. So you do have the options of how you want to do that in case you do want to reorganize as you're doing the migration. So let's take a look quickly at Scalr. And what we'll see here, if I go up to my account dashboard, is that we just have the default environment there in Scalr. So that's not the one that will be migrated over from Terraform Cloud. And then what we'll see is, for example, in our provider configurations, I did add our AWS provider. As the workspaces I am migrating over will need to authenticate to AWS. And then next, the only other thing I've added in the integrations is our GitHub VCS provider, because some of these workspaces will be VCS based. So we do want to automatically set up the connection to those repos as the script migrates it over. In Terraform Cloud, we'll see that we are operating in this organization and project. We have 7 workspaces that we want to migrate over. Some of them have state, some of them have variables. So if we go into this EC2 instance, we'll see that there is state, and we'll see that there is also a variable. So we expect all of this to be migrated over to Scalr once we execute the script. All right, so we are ready to execute the script. As I mentioned, I already added the credentials for Scalr and Terraform Cloud as environment variables. So the only thing I really need to pass in this point via arguments would be my VCS provider name in Scalr, which is GitHub. And that doesn't necessarily need to actually be GitHub. It's going to be name, you've named it, the metadata in Scalr itself. And then our TFC organization that we want to map over. And of course, again, that could be the project if you want it to be. So we'll go ahead and start executing that. And what we'll see is it's going to go step by step through each one of those workspaces, tell us the step in which is that. And then at the end, as I mentioned, it will generate the Scalr provider code for us. Okay, and there we have it. So we see that all 7 workspaces were migrated successfully. So if I come into Scalr, what we'll see, if we do a quick refresh and come into our dashboard, is that we now have that TFC migration demo. So that was our organization in Terraform Cloud. And then we have a Scalr admin environment, which is where that workspace is going to live, that we're actually going to manage the rest of Scalr with. So that's where that generated Scalr provider code is in that workspace, and we can manage all the workspaces and environments that we imported in. If I click into my TFC migration demo, again, we see that EC2 instance workspace that we clicked on in Terraform Cloud. And now if we come into here, first off, we'll see that those variables did get pushed over, and we'll also see that we have the state file. A lot of different other objects can be imported over, but again, you have the options through the arguments. And the other thing to show is that once that script was finished, and we go into the generated Terraform folder, what we will see is that we actually have this main.tf here that was automatically generated, so that now you have all the workspaces as code through the Scalr provider, where we're linking it to the VCS repositories and all the various settings that were taken from Terraform Cloud. And then lastly, we can take a look at our backend.tf, which this will actually connect us into the Scalr account and environment where we can continue to manage this code in a Scalr workspace itself. So all we have to do is simply run a Terraform plan here. And if we jump into Scalr, what we'll see in this Scalr admin environment is the workspace that will now manage all the Scalr objects for us. And as that run is executing a plan, we'll see that all of the environments and workspaces that we saw in the Terraform configuration file are in here. And it will even do some imports for us. So we'll import the resources into state. So now we can continue to manage this with Terraform as well as Scalr to help this scale long term.